Okay. So feet hip width apart as always. Just check your stance. Nice gentle warm up. Try and get your toes pointing forwards. Just have a little check of your posture in general. So feeling of maybe 70% of your weight in the front half of your feet. Give or take a percentage of point or two at this stage. Hips dropping back. So from the side, knees are roughly above the balls of your feet, but your hips are more above your ankles. So just this slight curve in the legs, giving you this feeling of just being able to let your center of gravity drop. However you sort of understand that, however you imagine that, either by the feeling of it, or by bringing in one of the images, the pelvis hanging from the spine, torso sliding down between your legs, that kind of thing. And just getting so that you recognize this opening up around the central part of your body, hips and waist, so that the turning starts to come nice and freely. Feeling the movement up through your ribs to your shoulders, down into your hands. Let your body settle into a steady rhythm. Pull your chin in slightly. So I'm going to come a bit closer so you can see that a bit better from the side. What we sometimes get when we talk about the chin pulling in is people doing this, bending down. In fact, if I exaggerate, if I push my chin out, I pull my chin back towards my Adam's apple, and you see this rotates the head, it raises the back of the head, and it's really just an opening up in the very top vertebrae of your spine, giving you a very slight angle downwards. So you're not looking down. One of my teachers described it once as standing on a hill looking out over a valley. I often think of sort of standing by the seashore and looking out towards the horizon, but barely noticeable tilt. And that idea of looking is a very broad thing. You're not staring hard at something, you're just taking in the whole vista. I think either of those two images perhaps give you the right sort of idea. Just be aware of any areas that feel a bit tight or a bit stiff. We're aiming to release in those areas, to soften, some might say relax. One term often used is to let go, which as you probably heard me say before, it's not a term that I'm terribly fond of, although in many ways I think it's quite accurate. But one of the things that we might try and do, as always with Tai Chi, is to draw an image into the practice. And one image I find quite helpful is if you were to hold up sort of a small rock or a stone or something in the palm of your hand and squeeze it tightly, it would be really painful. If it was sharp and jagged, you'd feel it cutting into your skin. On the other hand, if you could just open up your hand, then the stone would still be there, but you wouldn't be aggravating it. And I think that's probably quite a useful way for me, anyway, of imaging the idea of letting go. We shouldn't see it as something that just makes something disappear, but it means that our response to it starts to change. And much of Tai Chi is about that change of response. You know, we feel the pull of gravity through our body, and rather than stiffen up and strain against it, we find a way of yeah, letting go with it, allowing it through our body. If, you know, in push hand, when somebody goes to push you, rather than stiffening up and straining, we find different perspectives. So that idea of letting go, just a kind of change, almost a change in our attitude, if we can manage it. But something about all of these terms, that we should see them as being verbs rather than nouns. In other words, rather than, oh, well, I've let go of that, that's now sorted, you know, a memory, that tightness in your shoulder. We should see it as an ongoing process. So again, one of the problems, I think, with a term like letting go is that we can too easily make it a fixed thing. Oh, I've let go of that, so it's over. Or, you know, people say, why don't you just let go of that? Well, maybe I am, or maybe you are. But it doesn't mean it's just going to go away and problem solved. So it's an ongoing thing, like everything else in arts like Tai Chi, rather than a kind of final solution. And it's important to be aware of that, because with all of these things, rooting down isn't, oh right, I've rooted down. I remember chatting to somebody once, and they were saying to me, yeah, I don't need to come to Tai Chi anymore because I've got the rooting down. I remember standing looking at them thinking, you don't look like somebody who's very well rooted. You know, it's not something that you come to the end of, that in a way, rather than thinking these are the things that we need to do Tai Chi with, these are the things that we're doing Tai Chi to help us work with. After all, if somebody's pushing you and you sort of like relax a little bit and you soften, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stop pushing you. So it's an ongoing process. And this image of just holding the rock loosely rather than tightly is perhaps useful. And I say that not to discourage people, but to encourage you, because I think we too easily get a fixed idea about qualities like that in arts like Tai Chi. We think, oh, I can't do this because, you know, I've tried to let go and it doesn't work. But it doesn't mean it doesn't work on a moment-to-moment basis. And then we can feel bad about it and so on and so forth. So it's not there to guilt trip you. Raising your hands. The Chinese term that covers those kind of qualities of softening, relaxation, letting go, and so on is Sung. S-U-N-G. And like a lot of these terms, it covers a range of meanings that would include simple relaxing, but means a whole lot more, and invokes a sort of quality of suppleness and elasticity, springiness within your whole system. So just letting your hands drop down. So when we stand, we, if you like, let go of, we stop tightening around the pull of gravity through our body. Because this means gravity is not there. It means that this is the state that we look to be able to maintain as much as possible, and to be able to come back to when we lose it. Again, I've often quoted T.T. Liang when he said that he lost balance all the time, but got it back all the time. So letting your hips drop down and back, Soften the knees and pushing up. Sinking down and pushing up. I think I mentioned last week that Tai Chi, when we see it in the context, not so much of as exercise, but of the meditational arts, is actually interesting because it does contain the cyclical nature of these things, from yang to yin, from yang to yin. You could argue that the pushing up is yang, the sinking down is yin. You could also argue that those times when our attention goes out, and maybe we cease to let go within the body, are yang to the yin of the returning. Bringing your hands around, pushing up, and pressing down. If there was one stage in this which would represent that releasing of the tight grip, then it would be in the downward movement. They're the ones where we tend to let the weight drop more. And sometimes what we say is we sort of let the tension go down into the ground, because maybe you're tightening the shoulders, you let your hips drop, you let the pelvis drop, and that allows the shoulders to drop. So it's a downward movement. These ideas are really quite simple, but put them into practice is obviously a great deal harder. And then change into the wild goose. As always, another useful aspect is just the memory, those times when we have managed to let go, to release, to understand the importance of recalling the feeling that had. So it might be here, maybe as your hands drop, you get this sort of feeling of releasing in your shoulder, perhaps, because the arms are going down lower. Maybe if you let your elbows drop, you could get that feeling of releasing in your arm. Again, I think the image of softening the grip around the stone is an interesting one, because it has a very physical element to it. And of course, we're working with all of these ideas in a very physical sense. But remember, there is no significant distinction between mind and body. So whatever it is we're tightening around, I suppose you could say, can benefit from this process. And then parting the clouds. One more time. and then dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So that process of releasing, of letting go, is also related with the idea of the punctuation, that willingness just to find that slight pausing, as I've sometimes described it, between movements, between the stages of the movements, just simply not being in a hurry. Those are perhaps the moments when we're most likely to be able to release. And particularly in the case of this exercise with your arms hanging down. But try not to rush and down. Notice if you're sort of, you're twitching. I notice sometimes when I'm teaching, I might be doing this exercise. I noticed it the other day with a class, and I was thinking, yeah, so we'll do a couple more of these, then we're going to pushing in 4 directions. And as I thought it, even though I was doing this exercise, my right hand sort of twitched as though it was, oh, come on, let's go and do pushing in 4 directions. And it was like, no, this isn't a good idea. I need to have a sense of what's coming next. And when I'm going to make that transition, which we will do when we've completed this round of the exercise. But I don't want to start doing it before it's proper time. So with an increased awareness, we catch these moments and then pushing in 4 directions. Moments when we're just rushing a little bit. Moments when we do get that feeling of punctuation and release. Another thing that you may find, and that is useful for developing the movements and the postures, the same idea can be applied to different parts of the movement. So for instance, with this one, when you turn in the center of your body, we can often reach that point of sort of stiffening up. We can feel the pulling in our body. But as we approach that point, we become aware that we're approaching that point. And that's when, again, we might want to bring in those qualities of releasing and letting go, however we understand them. One more round. And change. So always beginning these sessions with the same routine means that we have the space in our minds to be able to consider these qualities, like, you know, letting go or something like that. The movements are familiar. We don't have to think too much about them, and we can think really not so much about what we're doing, but how we're doing it. Adding the turn this time. And in the same way, when we build up our own sort of personal routines in the mornings, we remind ourselves of these qualities at the start of the day. Changing size. And adding the turn. So the same ability to just gently draw our attention in works for both that idea of that developing the stillness, just aware of those punctuation points, and also perhaps enables us to find that space to let go in, and to actually, you know, maybe use an image that helps with that. Rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. And polishing the table. That same awareness will also help us to be a little bit discriminating, rather than having a set idea about, you know, how far we're doing this movement, maybe even if we're doing this movement. If it's not appropriate, then we would leave it and maybe just do a smaller movement or whatever. All aspects of just trying to maintain an awareness from moment to moment. One more time in each direction. And just stand. And standing, just notice how easy it is to want to move. It's just simple standing. And we're not doing it for very long. But there's often this kind of, well, I've got to do this, now I've got to do that. Or maybe you're thinking about something, that physical and like mental agitation often go hand in hand. And we just, again, find that moment of punctuation, maybe the transition from in breath to out breath, or from out breath to in breath. And just come back to touch base for a moment. And then just shake hands. Slightly wider stance. If you can go into the full horse riding stance, that's great. But you know, if you do this and you find the muscles of your legs are getting really tired, then obviously you need to ease off a bit. You know, don't worry too much about sinking down a long way, but just transferring your weight from one foot to another. The wider stance makes the sideways movement a little bit easier. It also, and you may not believe this to start off with, but because of the wider space, the actual process of dropping your center of gravity is more straightforward. You've got a bigger space there. So although at first sight, this is a posture where you think, oh, God, my knees are up, are up to this. Actually, it should take the pressure off your knees once you've got the legs conditioned. We're going to do part of the wild horse's mane. So come into your right leg, hold the ball with your left hand underneath, push across. Start by feeling that you're pushing into something with your shoulder. And then as you push in, you turn slightly and bring the hand up and then back. Hold the ball, move across. An image I sometimes have here is that you've got something in your hand, maybe a cup or something like that, and you've got a heavy door in front of you. So what you're doing is you're pushing into the door and you create a little bit of space, and then you're able to just pass the cup through that space. So we start to get a feeling of intent, something happening in our body right from the start. It's not just about your hand swinging out. It's about this push from the shoulder down to elbow as your weight moves, turning in the center. All of those building into the extension of your arm. Part in the wild horse's mane. One more time. Now bring your weight to the middle. You can do this next exercise either in the wider stance or go back to the narrower stance. Hold your hands over your chest. Push out with your left hand, I beg your pardon. Turn to look at the left hand. Draw your right hand back. Tuck the elbow underneath or have it out to the side. This is the archer. And then bringing your left hand across as far across to your right as you can without pulling this shoulder out of line. And then push out with your right hand turn to look, watch the hand as it moves away and then comes across and back to the center. We can certainly feel the opening across our chest. But you would also, if you're paying attention, notice a similar opening across your back as your arm comes across. Open up the spaces between your fingers, and in particular, that space between your thumb and your forefinger. And it's almost like that's the bit that will be pushing the bow away. As you're firing an arrow, you'll be aiming through that space. For a variation on this, as you push away with your left hand, move your weight into the right leg. Just be careful not to twist the knee up or to overextend the knee, especially if you're in the narrow stance. It's very easy to overextend your knee here. Come back, bring your weight into the center, and then as you push away into your left leg. What you may find is if you're in the narrow stance, you sort of shortcut the feeling, you stay in your right leg here until you're ready to push away. Whereas in the wider stance, you'll probably just come back into the center. But the main thing is to get this sense of pulling back here. One more on each side. Good. And drop your hands down. Shake. With that growing awareness that comes, and really all of these things, including images like the one I used for letting go, are things that bring our attention back. And gradually, where we can develop a kind of baseline of attention. And so if you think about those last two exercises, this is part of the wild horse's mane here. And notice that openness across there. This is the archer, and especially if you do this. So both of these movements, part of the wild horse's mane uses a turning in the center, the archer doesn't. Both of them have the qualities of opening up that area of the chest and upper back. And we will register things like that, and we will notice other things with the different exercises that we do. Again, becoming more aware of these internal resonances, these internal pathways within the body. So the thing about the punctuation, the releasing, the drawing in of our attention is that it makes us more aware of more subtle changes within the body, and that awareness breeds a greater capability of releasing, of focusing, and letting go, and then we notice more, and so on and so forth. So as to the best of my experience, that is an ongoing process, not one that I can certainly see any end to in my own experience. Now, 1 foot forwards, transferring your weight. So in those moments of punctuation, as I've described them, we want to get that feeling of releasing. It may be that there's a particular part of your body at each point. I often find that lower back, for instance, is a key area. I can get to here. I think, well, I'm a bit wobbly, and then just this ability to drop my hips as I cease to hold the tightness in the lower part of my back enables me to drop down just that little bit more. I'm not saying it's going to be there for everybody, although lower back is a very common thing. So another thing that happens is that we build an awareness of other parts of the body than the ones that, for the most part, you know, we're kind of generally aware of, which is mostly the upper part of the body, arms, hands, chest, the front of the body. And then raising your toes and your heel. I always think it's interesting in martial arts when, you know, even people, perhaps especially people with massive experience, and maybe they've got high grades and things like that, are still having to be reminded about their feet. We usually lose touch with them, but remember that the act of bringing your awareness to something has an effect on your nervous system. Neurons that fire together wire together. In other words, if we use a particular series of nerve cells, they'll start to work better together. This is that phrase is one that comes from neuroscience. Stepping in. So our ability to recognize what's going on in, say, our feet improves. And also, hopefully, our ability to recognize that we're not aware of that improves. It's like there's something missing. It's like I've left something at home, or, you know, whatever. On the other side. But all of these ideas show how significant awareness is in this whole process. That's not to say that the physical aspect isn't of equal importance. You can let go all you like. You can use any imagery you like, however profound. And, you know, if you've got a sore knee, you've still got a sore knee. So we learn to change our responses around these things, and that can often lead in the long term to a significant change. But from moment to moment, the change is just in our response. And then raising your toes and your heel. This requires just a little bit extra letting go, because a little bit more weight is going down into your feet. We go from maybe 70% of your weight in your back foot. As you raise your toes, it goes up to 80, 85, whatever, and so on. And the thing about this is that it means that we become even more aware of how it's not traveling down through our leg. It's like, I'm fine here. I raise my toes. Oh no, my knee's a bit tight, and so on and so forth. Stepping in. And then step through. Again, exercises like this are good from the point of view of the things that I've been talking about, because we repeat the same simple action over and over again. We step forwards or backwards, we put our heel or a ball or a foot down, we put the rest of the foot down, we move the weight. Then we repeat that over again. One more time. And then going back. Bring your feet down. Shake out. Pigeon spreads its wings. So start with your weight in your back, but have your right foot forwards. Hands on your belly. Pushing forwards, feeling the movement coming out through your belly, solar plexus and your chest. And then back. With your back opening as you bring your hands down in front. And then fisherman cast the net. One more time. Pushing wave. Shake out. Bring the foot forwards. Start with pigeon spreads its wings. and then pushing wave. Sorry, fisherman cast a net. Not pushing wave yet. And now pushing wave. Good. Have your right foot forwards again. Start off with fisherman cast a net just for a couple of rounds. And then start to bring about the changes. So this time as you go back, turning towards the angle of the rear foot, letting your arms swing over and down in the figure of 8 movement. Turn out just a little bit, see how that sends your arms out, and then back. Step in. See if you can get this connection between hands and feet, rising and lowering together. Good. And then on the other side, so left foot forwards. Again, start with fisherman cast a net for a couple of rounds. And then turn in. And have your arms just swing through the circular movement. So again, there's here we settle into the front foot with the expansion coming up through the side of our body. Being prepared to just wait until the arms are in position. So your hands will swing up, and as they reach the top of the curve, that's when you start to move your weight back. And then stepping in. So now hands and foot, in theory, not always in practice, reach the top of the movement together. It won't reach the bottom of the movement together because your foot needs to go down before you move your weight back or forwards for obvious reasons, really. Now step through. This time, swing the raised leg in the opposite direction, whichever way you're going. You could also do this in a different plane. You could bring your foot up and you could step sideways. One more. Good. And shake out. So with the sideways movement, you could do this. I didn't because, well, you'll see what happens. You can step in like this. But of course, what's going to happen is I'm just going to disappear off screen, aren't I? But it's a very free ranging movement, because really, if you think about it from this position, so from this position of stillness, of letting go, or punctuation, however, actually here, I have a choice. I can put my foot in various places. I could go on a diagonal, I could go that way, I could change direction completely, I could go that way, and then I can go that way, and so on and so forth. Makes it a really nice little exercise. Means we can do it in any kind of space, really. And it also really emphasizes the significance of this moment when we're able to bring together the qualities of the movement to a point of punctuation. And as always, that's where we might think, you'll see me do this sometimes. I'm a bit kind of there, and that's when that process of letting go becomes significant. And for me, the physical experience of that is comparable to that idea of gripping the stone hard or releasing it. The physical feeling in my fingers. If I'm gripping tightly and then I can do that, I'm gripping tightly, I can do this. It's the same kind of thing. So these things connect in very nicely, I think. Anyway, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. Side. And shoulder. Your hips. Heart on your belly. Up, up. So, back to the basic stance and giving yourself a moment to settle in, sinking down, and then embrace tiger, return to the mountain. So this exercise really emphasizes that, if you like, yin aspect of the practice. And that process of letting go, releasing in our body, which for me, with this particular exercise, starts at this point here, as my arms start to come around. Already I can feel the drawing down to my shoulder, my hips, my back and my shoulders. And again, the idea of something draining away towards the ground, drawing my arms in slowly. One more round. And stand. And then just shake out. Thank you very much, everybody. So